I'm Rob Skinner, and this is the Rob Skinner Podcast. Today I'm talking to Bob Shanks, whom I interviewed in a previous episode. He's in Savannah, Georgia, and I'm here to talk to him about what God is doing in that church, in his leadership of the church in Savannah. All this and more on the Rob Skinner Podcast. Welcome back to the Rob Skinner Podcast. My goal is to inspire you to live a no regrets life, make this life count, and multiply disciples, leaders, and churches. Bob, welcome back to the program.
It's good to be back, man.
Okay, I heard your story a while back, and it was so inspiring. I mean, just crazy story about drug addiction, drug sales, living together, you and your wife, Tricia, and just coming together, becoming Christians, traveling hours to get to church. I mean, it's one of the most inspiring and crazy stories I've ever heard of a conversion. And then not just a conversion to God, but then having the dream to go into the ministry, to make a difference, and spending the rest of your life from that time period to doing ministry in the Midwest primarily. But now you're in Savannah, Georgia, and we're here at the Boston Healthy Church Growth Conference. And I thought it'd be great just to get an update. How are things going in Savannah? What are you excited about? How are you seeing God multiply disciples and leaders?
Yeah, so we actually just hit our 4-year mark in Savannah. And the church was 20-some when we arrived. We're really averaging 60-some now. We have like 54 people in the membership.
Amen. That's awesome.
The church definitely has grown.
So it's grown from 20 to about 50 members.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
50 members. And so the growth this past year was a little slower than we expected. But we have vision for a campus ministry. We do a campus internship in the summer, bring people in to help. Last year we had 3 campus baptisms. We had a campus baptism recently. So we're starting to see growth in the campus ministry, which is very, very encouraging.
The name of the college?
It's Georgia Southern.
Okay.
SCAD. And then actually there's a Statesboro campus of Georgia Southern as well. And so those are the 2 main schools that we're seeing most of the growth from. And I guess there used to be, when Matt Weber was there, there used to be like 40 campus students at one time. So because Savannah's not that big. The church has never been that big. And so it shows that, even a small church can actually have a thriving campus ministry. And of course, we know young people, it's so important to really grow the church. And so that's really the focus, which is why we brought on Tom McGurk to help really lead the church, help with the young people in the ministry, have vision for the campus. I spent many years on campus trying to work campus ministries at my age. I still would be happy to go. It is nice to have somebody closer to their age to do that.
How old are you and Tricia?
So I'm 58. My wife is 53.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. You guys are still in your prime.
Yeah. We still got some time to go. Yeah. We're excited about it.
Okay. So this is what I'm interested in is this is the dilemma that small churches get into. And I've spent the last 20 years, really most of my career planting small churches, leading small churches, is you grow a church, you're on staff. The problem is you don't have any extra money to hire anybody else. So it's a catch-22. If you hire somebody, you can't pay them. But if you don't hire somebody, it's hard to grow. You hit a ceiling of, a certain amount of people.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me about your strategy, the challenges of having another couple come in. Okay, I'm very interested in this.
Yeah, well, my strategy probably isn't the typical strategy when it comes to financial. We really felt like God opened the door for us to come to Savannah. And so in the conversations of coming to Savannah, finances came up. And so I told him God's bringing us to Savannah, whether we're able to get paid or not. And so we really felt like God was leading us. And so fortunately, they were able to work out a salary for us. It was pretty minimal, still very minimal. So we knew along it's a small sacrifice. I think, and I shared before that small churches are really It's really on our heart to really help build small churches. It's really what we work with the most. And I think there's such great need and vision and really a lack of hope that small churches have or don't have. And so it's just, it is more work, in my opinion, to work with a small church because you have to wear so many hats.
Exactly.
And so I don't look at the financial side of things. Even when we sit down with the board or the leadership, when I throw out my ideas or plans, I usually start with, let's first decide if this is a good idea for the church before we start figuring out all the reasons why we can't do it.
Right.
Because typically money's the reason why we can't do most things.
Right.
And I realize if I make a bad decision as a church leader financially, it's going to cost me my job. And I'm willing to lay my job on the line.
Right.
If it's going to benefit the church. And so, and there's been times we've experienced that, like the rubber hits the road kind of thing, like this is kind of where you're at, which I got a part-time job for a couple of years in Savannah. So really the church didn't need us to do that. But it was just something that kind of needed to happen at that time.
What were you doing?
So actually I got a part-time job at Costco doing inventory and stocking at 4:30 in the morning. Yeah.
Wow.
So for 5 hours, 4 days a week, sometimes 5 days a week, I would go and throw boxes and do their inventory. And so what I found, the reason I stayed, I was there for 2 years. The reason I stayed that long is because they had phenomenal benefits and the church was paying $1,400 a month for us to have benefits. So if I stayed there, it saved the church $16,000 a year. And so that $16,000 a year is what helped really make a big difference to bringing Tom on in the ministry. Now, Tom is really sacrificing, income as well to be there.
Okay. How did you persuade him to come to Savannah? He's not getting a full salary. So you must have powerful persuasion or some sort of Jedi mind tricks to get him to come.
No, we were given advice years ago. You can't follow your kids because you never know where they're going to be. Well, both of our kids have been in full-time ministry since college. And so that means they could go anywhere just like we could go anywhere. So
okay, wait a second. So Tom's wife is your daughter.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Okay.
So if there's anything that's good. Right?
Okay, all right.
Yes. Sorry, I thought you knew that connection, but yeah.
I knew it, had forgotten about it. Okay,
Yeah.
there we go. Thank you.
And so they came back from Paris and was taking a bit of a sabbatical before they went to their next venture.
Okay.
And we did not try to convince our kids to join us in Savannah at all. We did nothing to try to do.
Are you sure?
Positive. Because I didn't want to alter their direction. I didn't want to have an influence. If they were making bad decisions, yes, I'll be trying everything I can to influence them to make better decisions. And then just over time, we're like, hey, if you guys want, we could bring you on, Tom. I said, but yeah, obviously we want to be limited. And I think being overseas for 5 years and Courtney being away from family for so long. And my wife has just did a phenomenal job. I mean, she grew up. One thing we love about the church is its family because we didn't have family growing up.
Yeah.
And so my wife did not have an example of what a mother should do. And the church gave her that. The disciples, people in her life helped her understand that she was a phenomenal mom. I mean, so much to where the girls would move to Savannah to be with us. And they tell us all the time, we're here because we loved how you raised us and we want you to be a part of our grandkids' lives. So both of our kids used to be in full-time ministry and they came to Savannah. The Brody Brooks stepped out of the ministry. They've talked about maybe going back in the ministry later on in the future, but they're about to have their fourth kid in a couple months.
And they also live in Savannah.
They also moved to Savannah.
So you've got
two
two ministry couples aside from you now in Savannah.
We have something special.
Oh my gosh.
We have something that I think every church, we have 3 evangelists in a church with 3 evangelist women's ministry leaders in a church, which is partly why when you have a year that's like, we had a tough year, right?
It just reminds me of the Miami Heat when you've had LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, like Chris Bosh, like what? You got all the superstars. That's awesome. In a church of 50.
Yes.
Lord Almighty. Okay, tell me about it.
And God has blessed us. We're in a church building that it's a phenomenal church building. That it's a long story I won't get into, but the minister there is like, you can have our church building for $500 a month.
Oh,
So we have this 22,000 square foot church building.
oh Lord.
That is top line modern church building that you could go into today. And he's like, you can use all of our equipment, in all the rooms you have access. We just have to alter our times around them a little bit.
Sure.
And so things like that, God has opened the door for financially for us to be able to say, okay, well, what can we do with the extra funds? And again, my whole perspective of the finances is, if we have money, we should be investing it into the church. I know we want to keep money for 5, 6, 7 years down the road, but if there's needs in the church, what I've learned, it takes more faith to spend money that you have than it does to spend money you don't have. And so the more money we put back, the more we want to hold on to it. And I'm a bit of the opposite. And so I'm like, if we have money, how can we invest in building the church?
Okay, that confused me a little bit. So can you be a little clear on what you mean by that?
Well, as far as the faith aspect of it, it's me working with boards,
with money,
leadership.
just with money, and just it's more different. I didn't follow you.
Yeah, and so for me, from a financial standpoint, working with the board and the money that we have, we're willing to take pay cuts to be there. The McGurts have done the same thing. And so I look at our finances as we use the money that people contribute to the church to build the church. And so when we sit down to evaluate year after year, we try to identify what are some of the biggest needs of the church and what's it going to take for us to do that. And money is usually the number one reason why we can or can't do certain things, right? Mm-hmm. And so what's been odd, and I will say even the last 3 churches I've been a part of, we've had money already in the bank to accomplish the things that we plan to do.
Yeah.
It's been hard to let go of those funds because of the security it provides down the road.
Yeah.
And so what I've experienced is it's been easier to make those decisions without one. Because when we have it, it's harder to let go of. Mm-hmm. And I get it.
Yeah.
I've experienced that personally, right? When I have my nest egg.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I have to dip into that rather than I do everything I can not to dip into that money. But when there's an emergency or there's a need to really build the church and we have resources already available to us, I personally don't have any problem using it.
That's awesome.
And so, but so I've recognized it's a faith issue more than anything else. It's especially if you already have something by sight and you're having a hard time making a decision to utilize what you already have, that's a faith issue. And so, that's really the dynamic that we work through. So that's why my perspective on finances and how we do things is a little bit different.
It's really sacrificial. You're still working a part-time job?
I just quit. The church is at a point now where I'm able to get the benefits back through the church.
Okay. So how can a church of 50 support 3 couples?
So the Brody and Brooke aren't getting paid.
Okay.
So they
and Brooke is your daughter.
Yeah, Brooke's my daughter and Brody's my son-in-law. And you interviewed his parents, the Snells, Rusty and his wife. We actually helped put them in the ministry in Toledo.
Okay, they're in Ohio. Okay, yes. Great. Okay, piecing it all together.
Yeah, so there's a whole connection here.
Now, are the Snells going to move to Savannah too, the parents?
No, it's funny because we were all in Columbus originally. His parents moved to Columbus. So his parents are in Columbus. He could have stayed there.
That's where they're now. They were in Toledo.
Yeah,
okay. Love those guys.
Yes. Yeah.
Totally.
I told him last time I seen him, I was like, hey, Rob said hi.
Oh, I just love, oh man, yeah.
So then, they moved to Savannah because they were going to stay in the ministry, but the opportunities they had wasn't a good fit for them.
Okay.
And so they decided, let's go to Savannah for a while.
Okay.
Let things kind of settle down and then revisit, ministry. So, however, since then they've had 2 kids. So that's kind of caused it to settle down a little bit more.
Okay.
And then Tom is just ministry focused, right? He's an evangelist, true and true. And so, and Brody's great too. Like it is phenomenal. Like I have Brody preach once a month.
Okay.
To keep him engaged in the ministry.
Exactly.
Talk about them leading a family group in the church. We want to utilize the people that we have in the areas that we need. And relationships and connections is the number one thing. I mean, so that's the thing. We're even in small church. You think it'd be easier in a small church, but there's still the challenges with.
How do you organize the preaching rotation?
So I set it up to where Tom and I rotate every other week.
Okay.
And then we plug in Brody in once a month. Now we have other people can do it too, right? So, but the church loves it. They love the diversity and the different people out there at different times. And
Bob, you're living the dream.
I am.
You got your 2 daughters there. You got your son-in-laws.
All the grandkids.
You got a full quiver right there.
Yes.
That's incredible. God has blessed you so much.
It is. It's not something I would ever expect. It's one of those prayers you pray, but you never think God's going to actually do it. You know what I mean? Like to be together. And so, yes, it's there's one song we sing. I'm terrible at songs, but it's about one generation after another generation being together. And we sing that in church. I just look around. I could see my kids and my grandkids.
Oh my gosh.
In service with this. And it's just.
How many grandkids do you have?
So we're about to have our 6th.
Oh my gosh. I am so jealous, bro. I got to confess, there's jealousy going on right here.
It's really, again, part of me like, okay, God, why? There's so many amazing people in the world, but yet some reason you've delivered us. That's the power of God of what He has done in our lives. Is it just makes me fall at His feet every day.
You got to write a book, bro. You really got
to think that where we're at. I mean, because we both have seriously dysfunctional families still to this day, and
it's amazing God's power. But tell me, how is it working with son-in-laws? I mean, like, how do you manage that? Obviously they're strong. You're strong. You've got a view of ministry that has been developed over time. How do you kind of make that all go in one direction so that it benefits the church?
Well, it's actually with Tom, it's still a learning curve. We're still trying to figure those things out because he's a church member, right?
Sure.
And the dynamic is really the responsibility. Who's doing what, working together. And I thought family would make that easier. And I'm not saying it makes it harder, but it hasn't. I don't feel like it's really your family. So, and so we're still kind of figuring some of that out. However, so one thing we try to do is we even when I work with Brody and Brooke, our goal was to really just help them with their ministry, and we set up somebody else that would help them in their marriage,
right?
And then we even provided a couple, like when we were in Ohio, working with the Snells, Sean Kirkland and his wife. They were the ones that the Brody and Brooke could contact if they felt like their lead minister or their dad was out of line. And you know what I mean? So there could be some uncomfortability how you address those things. And so we wanted them to have an avenue like, okay, if there is something in our dynamics not working that you feel like, hey, dad's just not listening or whatever it is. So even things like I never approve time off. We have somebody else in the church that they go to. I don't decide raises. I don't do anything that anybody could look at and say, you showing favoritism in that way. Matter of fact, you can almost accuse me the opposite. I'm probably harder.
Exactly. That was my next question is nepotism. I mean, you got your whole family there. How do you navigate that?
Well, that's putting some things into place to where I couldn't show favoritism if I wanted to, in a sense like raises, vacations, those kind of things. There's somebody else in the church that that can help work through those kind of things. And then putting somebody in place outside the church that can kind of navigate some conversations and issues that we may have within the dynamic of our relationship. And again, even specifically for Brody and Brooke, they had the Kirklands to help them out. And so I think the nepotism is in reverse for us in a sense of I got to make sure I'm being more caring and loving, and I don't have a higher expectation because they are my kids.
Right.
Because I've kind of been like that my whole life is, having a higher expectation for them. And that's probably more of the area that I need help with, to making sure that, I'm not treating them any different or any calling them to a higher standard than somebody else. And we have a plethora of people that we talk to. I mean, Ivy just talked to all the people I talk to.
Yeah, like tell me, who's discipling you? Who's in your life? How do you work that out?
So when we arrived in Savannah, there really wasn't anything set up, and we were new to the area. And so we reached out to Charleston, South Carolina, met a couple, an elder of the Bairds. We're up there. Ivy, you just met today.
Any relation to Al Baird?
I don't believe so. No, I'm almost positive there's not. And so we asked them 4 years ago, will you disciple us? will you help us, in areas, ministry and stuff. They used to be in the ministry and all that kind of stuff. So, and that's our local help in a sense of relationships. And then we're blessed to have the Thomases in Savannah who just moved 2 weeks ago. And they helped plant the church, one of the churches in New York, and got tons of experience, been around for a long time. And so he's the one I would go to and say, I want you to evaluate my leadership. So I'd have him evaluate my leadership. And he's the one who would work the leadership of the church and come up with, because I want to make sure, especially in a small church, I could wear so many different hats. I want to make sure I'm fulfilling the role of an evangelist. And so often I can deviate from that and focus on so many other things. And part of my role is raising up people to do some of the things that, the other people are equipped to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's there to help me kind of stay on track in that sense of,
Right.
You need to work on some areas and different things. And that we've loved that relationship. It's kind of heartbreaking to see them to move on, but it's needed for them to go be with family and stuff at their age. And so we try to set things in place like that to develop some of those relationships. The region we're part of, the CDG, the Carolina, Eastern Georgia, Dave Langley's he's done a great job. We haven't been as involved in that as much with working part-time. He's done a great job of keeping the leaders together. They meet pretty much once a month through Zoom. And so developing relationships through that, which is going to be nice, not working in Costco. It's going to be extra time to really show I'm present and those kind of things.
How'd you manage to have a quiet time going to work at 4:30 in the morning?
So that's probably the thing that impacted me the most was my time, because I'm a 2 to 3 hour guy every morning. And so I would have to get up at 3.
Oh my gosh.
So I get up at 3 or so every morning. It depends. Sometimes I go in at 4:30. Sometimes I go in 5. Occasionally they would change it to 6. So I would get up at 3 o'clock in the morning. And so I'd had at least an hour plus time to focus on my time with God. And it was hard because that's the thing that I felt like I sacrificed the most. There's not very many people meet at 5 o'clock in the morning for appointments, you know what I mean? So, and so that, and
Bob, you're making me feel real bad right now. This is, you're challenging me. This is a challenging appointment.
Oh, man, that's, I'm just grateful to have this time with you, spend time.
Oh yeah, that's great.
Share our story. It's very encouraging. So, we're very blessed. God is.
That's crazy. Okay. So tell me, what's your vision going forward? You've got your 2 kids there, the family. That's great. Vision for the church. Like what's your hope? Let's just jump into a time machine here. And we're in 2030 now. You're looking back on the church. What do you want to see? What are you hoping to see there?
A couple of things we're focused specifically with the Savannah. Obviously, we want to grow the church, but we want to create an identity for the church in Savannah. One of the challenges of kind of moving around a little bit from building to building, place to place, there's no community that was able to kind of to focus on. And so the goal is kind of find a place where it can be long term, grow the church. I would love to see, God willing, that Tom eventually just solely take over leading the Savannah church, because we have plans to plant the Hilton Head. And so we've been working with Hilton Head group of people. We have church services there once a month. Last year they had as many as 50 visitors. I mean, it's done really, really well. And so the goal was to try to plant a house church there this fall. So I'm currently working with Savannah doing rotation stuff, but then I go to Hilton Head Bluffton every week. And then we have a church service there once a month. And then we do once a month Bible talk. And so that's part of it, just really planting
Hilton
that.
Head vacation area.
Yeah, it's
like, is there also a diet named after Hilton Head or something?
I don't know. I'm still learning that area. But
that's like, I think about vacation area or summer homes or something like that.
Yeah, so it reminds me a lot of Myrtle Beach.
Okay.
And so I've kind of, from a distance, kind of watched Myrtle Beach, because I think Hilton Head might be very similar in how we're going to have to do lead the church there. And so we've actually even connected with some of the other churches there to just kind of see what it's like to have church in a vacation town. And surprisingly, their attendance doubles during vacation season. Wow, as people go to church, like which I was a little surprised too, the people go on vacation actually go to church. And so what my little bit of study and just kind of learning the area and trying to figure out, population wise, like peak season is 50,000 people. So it's not very large. However, it's about 45 minutes to an hour from Savannah. We have people there. And so my wife and I visited Indonesia years ago, and we went to a little town.
I think we're there at the same time.
Yeah. Well, we went back a few times after that even. So, but yes, we were there one time at the same time. And so we went and visited one of the small churches. It was about 40, 50 people. And the brother, Rico, was like, hey, I'm going to take you to, I think it was Chickaron. And he goes, so what's going on? He goes, we're planting Chickaron, which is like 45 minutes away from whatever little town is in. And I just was like, what's your plan? How's a church of 40 people come up with this idea of planting this church? What's your process? Like, how do you figure out the finances? How do you figure out who's going to lead it? And he kind of looked at me like he didn't really understand what I was saying.
Right.
He understand the English very well. He goes, we're just called to make disciples.
Yeah.
He goes, there's disciples there. So we're going to strengthen disciples. And by doing that, we're going to build a church. And it kind of changed my perspective a little bit because I always thought, wow, we got to get the church to 100 people. We've got to get the church to the right place financially.
Right.
And if there's already disciples there, let's figure out how we can strengthen them. How can we help them take ownership of their area and look at it as a house church? And the group I'm with, I go there and lead that with them. But in all reality, they can do it themselves.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm trying to help them have the faith. Like, wow, we can actually really still stay connected to Savannah.
Yeah.
But let's build our ministry. Because it's harder to get people to drive an hour into Savannah for church than it is to get somebody to drive down the street.
No.
Which is why they've had 50 visitors there, but had none come to Savannah.
Oh, bro, I'm totally with you. Okay, so it's going great in Savannah. Normal challenges. But you got your family there. Let's kind of expand the vision here. Let's talk about the kingdom, our family of churches, getting a little broader. How are we going to get moving again and start to saturate the country and the world and start growing, really taking off and gaining momentum? Give me your top 3 ideas.
Oh man, it's tough to think globally, which I appreciate the work that people are still doing in the kingdom. Like, there's still great things happening. I think the small vision is the same as the large vision. And I think Jesus gave us that when he gave it to the 12 apostles, and then it became, 500 and grew. The vision doesn't change. And so prioritizing Christ's mission over my plans, the things I want to do. And so that's one of the hardest things I feel like for me is helping the church stay mission focused. And so, and I think I may have shared this with you before, that sometimes we prioritize the ministry over a mission versus the mission over the ministry. I think we can build a ministry and neglect the mission, but you can't work the mission and neglect the ministry. Like, those two go hand in hand.
Okay,
because you can't
break that down a little bit.
So, for example, let's say you share your faith and you study the Bible with somebody. The only way you're going to help that person become a Christian is you have to develop a relationship with them. You have to invest time into them. You have to plan when I'm going to meet with them, what we're going to talk about, how we're going to pray together, all the things. And you're developing a ministry within that. Now, if we leave that part out, we can still do the exact same things. I can hang out with people in the church. We can have Bible talk together. We can do all this kind of thing. We can create a thriving ministry that the church feels very supportive. But then we're lacking the one key thing that unifies us, and that's the mission. I believe Matthew 28 is more for the church than it is to make disciples. I think it's what brings us together. Mm-hmm. And that ministry mindset, or the mission mindset, really helps us to create and develop. Some of my best relationships in the church are the people I've reached out to and studied the Bible with.
Yeah.
And are the people who study the Bible with me. I mean, I have the closest relationships with.
Right.
And when we're in the same church together, man, you can't separate us.
Yeah.
We're out sharing our faith together. We're laughing together. We're having fun together. But if we're not keeping the main focus of the mission as a priority, then we just become a fun family group.
Yeah.
Hopefully spiritual family group.
Yeah.
But we're missing one of the most key elements of building those ministries, and that's the mission. So we have to continue Jesus' vision for the ministry.
Yeah. I think what you're doing there in Hilton Head is the key. Like, we've got to get our small churches to be mission minded, get other churches like what you shared about Indonesia. That's what they're doing in the Philippines. They'll get a few people who go out into the province, they convert their family, church begins. We've got to get that kind of mindset of saturation. And I think this is where the traditional Church of Christ did a great job. And I think that our current model kind of holds us back mentally because we think, okay, we've got a church in this metropolitan area. It's good. It's done. And that's it. It's covered. I think there should be a church in every single city, even if it's in a metropolitan area. And we need a lot more churches because I think you could have so many more churches in one city. You're not going to reach the same people. And I think like what you shared, people don't travel. They want a church close by. And I talked to someone just last week, and they had stopped coming to church for that very reason. And grew up in the church, but not going any longer. Why? Because it's too far for them to go in a large metropolitan area. And is that right? No. But at the same time, I go, we got to figure that out. Yeah. We have to have a mindset of like, let's get a church in everyone's neighborhood. That's going to take a long time, but I don't know. I feel like it's got to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. That's where even Savannah, we have members from Hinesville, which is almost an hour south. And we have members in Hilton Head, which is almost an hour north.
Right.
And so they're almost equally as close to Charleston, South Carolina. And so even like Keith Davis in Jacksonville. So it's been a while since I talked to him, but I'm like, Keith, we need to kind of collaborate. How can we create a house church between, because we already have disciples in Hinesville. He has disciples north of, we could almost instantly create a house church.
There you go.
Right there. If we have that. And some of it's instilling the faith into the people who live there. Because we have couples in Hinesville. I've been working with them for 4 years. Like, you can do this, guys. You can do it. You drive in for midweeks or you miss midweeks. Just imagine if we was able to create where you could have church once a month.
Okay, but don't you think there's part of it for people? It's like it's comfortable for them. They just go to church. They don't have to worry about evangelism because they're like, oh, no one's going to come. And you kind of check out in a way. I mean, I don't want to say that's universally the situation, but it's so tough to get people. You can go, but you're like, no one else is going to want to do that.
And again, I think we're dealing with the faith issue at that point, just to really believing that God's going to use them to accomplish these things. And I had a meeting with a brother this morning, and I shared my story. I was like, when we first became disciples, we fell in love with the church. We instantly felt like we wanted to go into ministry. We instantly wanted for Hope Worldwide. We sat down with a leader that we respect and love to this day. And he's like, what's your dreams? We shared our dreams with him. And he goes, that's never going to happen. Get some new dreams. And everything he shared of why it wasn't going to happen was absolutely true. Absolutely. It was. And I knew it at the time. And so, and my wife starts crying, right? And so we're talking, and I was like, we don't want to go into ministry for those reasons. And then the brother I talked to had a very similar story. And so I felt like what I've learned from that, which was I appreciate the brother sharing all those things. I'm not, of course we didn't go into ministry, but I thought, I don't want to rob people of their dreams and vision. I'm not the one that's going to determine whether or not somebody, well, I mean, it's possible as evangelist, I might determine whether I might be an elder or something. But so when I look at the church, I see everybody as a Bible talk leader. I see everybody as an elder. I see a potential elder. I see everybody as a potential deacon. I see everybody. And so, and even as times I work with the older couples and training how to be elders. And,
right.
And sometimes in that group, you're like, they'll never be an elder. Let God figure that out. We're still going to train them. We're still going to train them. They'll never be Bible. We're still going to train them to be a Bible talk leader. And whether they become one, it's not up to me. Yeah. I'm only going to be there to hopefully empower them to, prepare them for the church for works of service. That's my goal. And I think that's part of what people have been around for a long time. They probably experienced some of those kind of things that felt like they'd maybe been held back. And so, new vision, new dreams, and help them see that they can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Bob, great talking to you today. It's so exciting to see what God is doing in your life in Savannah, your family. Preaching the word. I hope that church just continues to grow and expand. It's amazing. 20 to 50, just a few years. I look forward to hearing more good news going forward. It's been so encouraging at this conference because my oldest son, who had left the faith for a period of time, just got baptized last April 1st, first time. And it wasn't April Fool's Day. It was real. And he's here at the conference along with my other son. And so I'm just flying high.
And that's all. Yeah. That's what you want right there.
Oh my gosh. I'm just so thrilled. I mean, I can't have a bad day. So I wake up, I was like, I'm happy.
Right.
I'm happy right now.
God is awesome.
Nothing can bring me down.
Yeah.
So all the best to you.
Amen. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on the Rob Skinner podcast. My goal is to inspire you to live a no regrets life, make this life count, and multiply disciples, leaders, and churches. Have a great day and make this life count.